Lady Kyra Velthara stood in the great hall of the Imperial Council, her silver skin glowing under the harsh lights. Her hands were bound behind her back with energy cuffs that made her luminescent markings flicker weakly. Around her, the highest members of Zephyrian society sat in their floating chairs, looking down at her with cold eyes. The hall was silent except for the soft hum of the anti-gravity platforms. Kyra kept her head high even though she knew what was coming. She had spoken against the Empire's war plans in public. She had said that other species deserved respect, not conquest. For a Zephyrian noble, this was the worst kind of crime. Council leader Theron Velthara, her own father, floated forward. His ancient face showed no emotion as he looked at his daughter. The golden marks on his skin pulsed with authority, a sign of his high rank in their society. Kyra Velthara, he said in their formal language, you have been found guilty of speaking against the Empire. You have questioned our right to rule the galaxy. You have shown sympathy for lesser beings. Kyra's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She had expected death or exile to the mining colonies. Those were the usual punishments for her crimes. However, her father continued, the Council has decided on a different punishment. One that will teach you the true nature of these creatures you defend. A cold feeling spread through Kyra's chest. This did not sound like mercy. You will be married to a human, Theron announced. You will live with this primitive creature and learn firsthand why we are superior. When you have seen their true nature, perhaps you will understand why the Empire must expand. The other council members made soft clicking sounds with their tongues, which was how Zephyrians showed approval. Some of them smiled, showing their sharp teeth. They thought this was very clever. Kyra felt her stomach drop. Marriage to an alien was considered the greatest shame in Zephyrian culture. It meant mixing their pure bloodline with something unworthy. For someone of her noble birth, it was worse than death. Father, she said quietly, please reconsider. I can serve the Empire in other ways. The decision is final, Theron replied. A human scientist has volunteered for this cultural exchange program. He believes it will bring peace between our species. How foolish he is. The guards moved forward and removed Kyra's energy cuffs. She rubbed her wrists where the metal had pressed against her skin. Her markings slowly began to glow brighter as her circulation returned. You will be taken to Neutral Station 7, her father continued. There you will meet your new husband. You will live with him and learn about human ways. After one standard year, you may request to return and serve the Empire properly. Kyra wanted to argue, to fight back, but she knew it was useless. The Council had made their decision. At least she would be alive, and after a year of proving that humans were as primitive as the Empire claimed, she could come home. 2 days later, Kyra sat in a transport ship heading toward the neutral zone. She wore simple gray clothes instead of her noble robes. Her few possessions were packed in a small bag beside her. Everything she had known was falling away behind her. The pilot, a low-ranking soldier, glanced back at her occasionally. She could see curiosity in his eyes, but he knew better than to speak to her. Even in disgrace, she was still nobility. Neutral Station 7 appeared on the view screen after several hours of travel. It was an ugly metal structure floating in space between human and Zephyrian territories. Ships from many different species docked there to trade and hold meetings. It represented everything that Kyra had been taught to despise about mixing with other races. As they docked, Kyra tried to prepare herself mentally. She had studied humans in school, but only to learn about their weaknesses. They were short-lived, emotional creatures driven by basic needs. They had no real technology of their own, just copies of things they had stolen from other species. They were violent and unpredictable. The airlock opened with a hiss. A station official, some kind of reptilian alien, gestured for her to follow. They walked through corridors filled with the noise and smell of many different species. Kyra kept her face calm, but inside she felt disgusted by the chaos. They stopped at a door marked with symbols in several languages. The official typed a code into the lock and the door slid open. Dr. Chen is waiting inside, the official said in basic trade language. Good luck. Kyra stepped through the doorway and stopped. The room was larger than she had expected, with 2 separate sleeping areas and a common space in the middle. Everything was clean and well organized. Soft music played from hidden speakers. A human man stood up from a chair near the window. He was taller than she had expected, with dark hair and kind eyes behind thin glasses. He wore simple clothes in blue and white. When he saw her, he smiled and walked forward slowly. keeping his hands visible. "Lady Kara," he said, speaking her language with a careful accent. "I am Marcus Chen. It is an honor to meet you." He bowed slightly, which surprised her. Most humans she had heard about were rude and aggressive. This one seemed to understand proper manners. "I have prepared the larger sleeping area for you," Marcus continued. "I hope you will be comfortable. I know this situation is unusual, but I hope we can learn from each other." Kyra stared at him. He seemed genuine, almost nervous. There was no sign of the crude behavior she had expected. This confused her more than anything else could have. "I understand you did not choose this arrangement," she said coldly. "Neither did I. Let us simply try to survive it." Marcus nodded. "Of course. Please make yourself at home. If you need anything, just let me know." He stepped back to give her space, which was another surprise. Zephyrian males often try to dominate through physical presence. This human seemed to understand that she needed room to adjust. Kyra picked up her bag and walked toward the sleeping area he had indicated. It was simply furnished but clean. A datapad sat on the desk with what looked like information about human customs. He had been preparing for her arrival. As she set down her bag, she realized something strange. This punishment might be more complicated than the council had planned. They had expected her to be disgusted and angry. Instead, she was confused and curious. From the main room, she could hear Marcus moving around quietly, giving her privacy to settle in. This consideration was so different from what she had been taught about humans that she began to wonder what else the Empire might have gotten wrong. Kyra woke to the sound of soft music and the smell of something cooking. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the trial, the punishment, and the human male in the next room. She sat up in the unfamiliar bed and touched the wall controls to check the time. She had slept longer than usual. On Zephyr Prime, her servants would have woken her hours ago for her morning duties. Here no one had disturbed her rest. It was strange, but not unpleasant. When she emerged from her sleeping area, she found Marcus standing at a small cooking unit. He wore different clothes from yesterday, clean and neat. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. "Good morning," he said with the same gentle smile. "I hope you slept well." "I was making breakfast, but I realized I don't know what Zephyrians eat." Kara looked at the food he was preparing. It was some kind of grain mixed with vegetables and what looked like animal protein. The smell was not bad, but it was wrong for her biology. "Zephyrians require mineral supplements and crystallized nutrients," she said stiffly. "We cannot process most organic matter the way your species does." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "I should have researched that better. I apologize. Is there a way to get proper food for you here on the station?" She was surprised by his immediate concern. A Zephyrian male would have told her to adapt or go hungry. "There should be a supply depot that serves different species," she said. "Then let's go there after I finish eating," Marcus said. "I want to make sure you have everything you need." Kyra studied his face for signs of deception or mockery. She found none. This confused her even more. According to everything she had been taught, humans were selfish creatures who only cared about themselves. Later, as they walked through the station corridors together, Kara noticed how Marcus moved. He stayed slightly behind her, which showed respect for her status. When other beings approached, he positioned himself so she could retreat if needed. These were the actions of someone who understood diplomatic protocol. At the supply depot, Marcus helped her select the proper nutrient crystals and mineral supplements. He asked questions about how they worked and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. When it came time to pay, he insisted on covering the cost. "This is a partnership," he said when she protested. "We should share resources." Back in their quarters, Kyra prepared her first meal in days. The familiar taste of home minerals helped settle her nerves. Marcus watched with scientific curiosity as she dissolved the crystals in purified water. "Does it taste like anything?" he asked. "Or is it purely nutritional?" "There are subtle flavors," Kara admitted. "This one has notes of copper and starlight." Marcus smiled. "Starlight has a taste? That's beautiful. I never thought about it that way." Kara found herself almost returning the smile before catching herself. This was not appropriate. She was here as punishment, not to make friends with a primitive alien. Over the next few days, Marcus tried to show her human customs and culture. He played music for her, strange emotional sounds that seemed to tell stories without words. He showed her human art on his datapad, images full of color and feeling that made no logical sense but somehow moved her anyway. Why do humans create things that serve no practical purpose? She asked one evening as he showed her a painting of flowers. Marcus considered her question seriously. Beauty serves a purpose, he said. It feeds something in our souls that pure logic cannot touch. Don't Zephyrians have art? We have architectural forms and mathematical sculptures, Kyra replied. But they follow strict rules of proportion and function. May I see some? Marcus asked with genuine interest. Kyra was surprised by his request. Most species found Zephyrian art cold and boring. She accessed her personal files and showed him images of the great crystal spires of her home city. Marcus studied the images with the same attention he had given human art. The mathematical precision is incredible, he said, but look at how the light plays through the crystal surfaces. There's beauty in the patterns, even if it wasn't the main purpose. Kara looked at the familiar images with new eyes. She had never thought about the light patterns before. They were just a side effect of the crystal structure. But Marcus was right. They were beautiful in their own way. That night, Kyra lay awake thinking about their conversation. Marcus had found beauty in something she considered purely functional. He had asked questions about her culture without judgment or mockery. This was not the behavior she had expected from a primitive species. The next morning, she found Marcus reading from a data pad while eating his breakfast. When she approached, she saw that he was studying Zephyrian language guides. You are learning our language? She asked. Marcus looked up and nodded. I thought it would be respectful to communicate in your native tongue. Though I'm having trouble with the tonal variations. The seventh tone indicates emotional subtext, Kara found herself explaining. It changes the meaning from simple statement to personal feeling. Could you teach me? Marcus asked. I would like to understand your culture better. Kyra paused. Teaching her language to an alien was certainly not what the council had intended when they sent her here. But refusing would be rude, and despite everything, Marcus had been nothing but courteous to her. Very well, she said, but you must practice properly. Zephyrian is not a casual language. As they began their first lesson, Kyra realized that something was changing between them. Marcus was not the crude, aggressive creature she had expected. He was intelligent, respectful, and genuinely interested in learning about her world. This realization troubled her more than she wanted to admit. If the Empire was wrong about humans, what else might they be wrong about? And if Marcus was truly as kind as he seemed, then her punishment was becoming something else entirely. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Kyra fell ill. She woke one morning with sharp pains spreading across her back and shoulders. When she looked in the mirror, she saw the beginning of crystal growths pushing through her skin, a stress reaction that happened to Zephyrians when they were far from home for too long. She tried to hide the condition from Marcus, wearing long-sleeved clothing and avoiding his presence. But the crystals grew larger each day, making it hard for her to move normally. By the 4th day, she was in too much pain to leave her sleeping area. Marcus knocked gently on her doorframe. Kyra, you missed our language lesson yesterday. Are you feeling all right? I am fine, she called back, but her voice was tight with pain. Please leave me alone. She heard him move away, and for a moment she felt relieved. But then he returned with something that beeped softly. I'm reading elevated stress hormones and unusual mineral concentrations, Marcus said through the door. You're sick, aren't you? Kyra cursed silently. She had forgotten that he was a scientist with access to medical scanners. It is nothing serious, she lied. Just a minor condition. May I come in? I might be able to help. No, Kara said quickly. The crystal growths were ugly and painful. She did not want him to see her looking weak and deformed. Please, just leave me be. There was silence for a long moment. Then Marcus spoke again, his voice gentle but firm. Kara, I can hear you breathing in pain. Whatever this is, you don't have to face it alone. I'm your partner in this arrangement, and that means I want to help when you're hurting. His words surprised her. Among Zephyrians, showing weakness was shameful. The strong survived and the weak were forgotten. But Marcus spoke as if helping her was natural and obvious. Another wave of pain shot through her back, making her gasp. The crystals were growing faster now, and she knew she could not hide much longer. Very well, she said quietly. You may enter, but do not judge what you see. Marcus stepped through the doorway and stopped when he saw her. Kyra sat on the edge of her bed, her shirt removed to accommodate the crystal formations that had sprouted from her shoulders and spine. The growths were beautiful in their own way, catching and reflecting the room's light, but they looked painful. "What is this condition called?" Marcus asked, moving closer slowly so as not to startle her. "Displacement crystallization," Kyra replied. "It happens when we are separated from our homeworld for extended periods. The crystals will continue to grow until they become too heavy for my body to support." "Is it dangerous?" Marcus asked with concern. "It can be," Kyra admitted. "If left untreated, the growths can damage the nervous system. But there is no cure except returning home or finding someone skilled in Zephyrian medicine." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "May I examine the crystals more closely?" "I promise to be careful." Kyra hesitated, then nodded. No one except medical professionals had ever touched her during a crystallization episode. It was considered too intimate and potentially dangerous. Marcus approached her slowly and knelt beside the bed. His hands were warm and steady as he gently examined the crystal formations. His touch was so careful that it barely registered against her sensitive skin. "The structure is incredible," he murmured, studying the way the crystals had grown from her natural skin patterns. "It's like your body is trying to recreate something it's missing." "The mineral fields of our homeworld," Kyra explained. "Our bodies are connected to the planetary crystal matrix. When we are separated too long, we try to rebuild that connection through our own biology." Marcus was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing the air just above the crystals without actually touching them. "What if we could trick your body into thinking it was home?" he asked. "Would that stop the growth?" "Perhaps," Kyra said, "but it would require precise harmonic frequencies and mineral resonance patterns. The technology does not exist outside our empire." "Let me research it," Marcus said. "I have access to databases from many different species. There might be something we can adapt." For the next several hours, Marcus worked at his computer while Kyra rested. He cross-referenced Zephyrian biology with similar conditions in other crystal-based life forms. He studied resonance patterns and mineral frequencies. He even contacted colleagues through the station's communication system to ask for advice. By evening, he had found something promising. A species called the Harmonians used sound therapy to treat crystal imbalances in their own people. With some modifications, their equipment might work for Zephyrians too. "The station has a Harmonian medical bay," Marcus said excitedly. "I spoke with their healer, and she's willing to let us try an adapted treatment." Kyra looked at him in amazement. "You spent your entire day researching my condition?" "Of course," Marcus replied as if it was obvious. "You're in pain. I want to help." The treatment took place the next morning. The Harmonian healer, a being made of living sound and light, calibrated her equipment to match Kyra's biological frequencies. As the harmonic waves washed over her, Kyra felt the crystals beginning to dissolve back into her bloodstream. Marcus sat beside her throughout the procedure, holding her hand, when the pain became intense. His presence was steady and comforting, and Kyra found herself grateful for his support. When it was over, the crystals had shrunk to barely visible bumps under her skin. The pain was gone and she could move freely again. But more importantly, something had changed between her and Marcus. "Thank you," she said as they walked back to their quarters. "I have never had anyone work so hard to help me before." "You don't need to thank me," Marcus replied. "Taking care of each other is what partners do." That night, Kyra lay in her bed thinking about what had happened. Marcus had seen her at her weakest and most vulnerable. Instead of showing disgust or taking advantage, he had devoted himself to finding a solution. He had touched her with gentleness she had never experienced before. For the first time since arriving at the station, Kyra began to think that maybe the Council's punishment was not going the way they had planned. She was supposed to learn that humans were primitive and cruel. Instead, she was learning that at least one human was kinder and more thoughtful than most of her own people. The realization frightened and excited her in equal measure. If she was wrong about Marcus, what else might she be wrong about? And what would happen when the year was over and she was expected to return home with proof of human inferiority? As sleep finally took her, Kyra's last thought was of Marcus's gentle hands and the way he had looked at her crystal growths not with disgust, but with wonder and determination to help. It was a memory she would treasure, even if she could never admit it to anyone else. 2 months after the crystal incident, Kyra could no longer deny what was happening to her. She was falling in love with Marcus Chen, and it terrified her more than any weapon the Empire had ever created. It had started small, the way he always asked about her comfort before his own. how he remembered tiny details about her preferences and adjusted their shared space accordingly, the respectful way he approached their cultural exchange, never assuming superiority despite being part of the species that was supposedly inferior. Their evening conversations had become the best part of her day. Marcus would share stories about his childhood on Earth, his dreams of exploring space, and his hope that different species could work together instead of fighting. Kyra found herself sharing things she had never told anyone. Her doubts about the Empire's expansion policies, her loneliness growing up as nobility, her secret love of mathematics and star patterns. One evening, as they sat together watching the stars through the station's viewing port, Marcus told her something that changed everything. "I should tell you something about why I'm here," he said quietly. "I wasn't chosen randomly for this exchange program. I volunteered specifically because I lost my previous position." Kara turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, staring out at the stars. "I was working at a research institute on Earth. We were studying alien biology and culture. But when the government wanted to use my research to develop better weapons against other species, I refused. I said science should build bridges, not weapons." "What happened?" Kara asked, though she already suspected the answer. "They fired me," Marcus said simply. "Called me a traitor and made sure I couldn't get another research position anywhere on Earth. When I heard about this exchange program, I saw it as a chance to do what I believed in, actually learning about other species instead of finding ways to fight them." Kyra felt something break open in her chest. Marcus had sacrificed his career, his home, his future among his own people because he believed in the same ideals that had gotten her exiled. They were both outcasts who had chosen principles over safety. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "That must have been very difficult." Marcus smiled at her. And in that moment, something passed between them that went beyond friendship or partnership. "It was worth it," he said, "because it brought me here. It brought me to you." Without thinking, Kyra reached out and touched his hand. His skin was warm and soft, so different from Zephyrian skin, but somehow perfect. Marcus looked down at their joined hands and then back at her face. "Kyra," he said gently, "I know this isn't what either of us planned, but I care about you. More than I should, maybe. More than is wise." "I care about you too," she whispered, the words feeling dangerous and wonderful at the same time. "I was not supposed to. This was meant to be punishment, but instead..." "Instead what?" Marcus asked, moving closer to her. "Instead, I have found something I never knew I was looking for," Kara admitted. Marcus leaned forward and touched her face with his free hand. "May I kiss you?" he asked. Kyra nodded, her heart beating so fast she thought it might escape her chest. When Marcus's lips touched hers, it was gentle and careful and completely different from anything she had experienced before. Zephyrian mating was formal and ritualistic. This was warm and emotional and full of genuine affection. For several weeks after that first kiss, they existed in a bubble of happiness. They worked together on research projects, combining Zephyrian precision with human creativity. They shared meals and stories and quiet moments watching the stars. They learned each other's languages and customs and bodies with equal fascination. Kyra had never known that physical intimacy could be so tender. Marcus approached every touch as if she were precious, asking permission and paying attention to her responses. He made her feel beautiful and valued in ways that had nothing to do with her noble status. But their happiness could not last. 3 months into their relationship, a message arrived from the Zephyrian Council. Kyra's hands shook as she read it. "What is it?" Marcus asked, seeing her distress. "They know," Kara said numbly. "Somehow they know that I have feelings for you. They say I have failed to learn the lesson they intended to teach." Marcus took the message and read it himself. His face grew dark as he reached the end. "They're sending ships to retrieve you," he said. "And they plan to eliminate me as a corrupting influence." Kyra felt cold all over. "They will kill you for the crime of making me happy. This is what I should have expected from my people." "How long do we have?" Marcus asked practically. "The message is 2 days old," Kara calculated. "Their ships travel fast. Perhaps another day, maybe 2. Marcus nodded grimly. "Then we need to leave, now." "Where can we go?" Kyra asked. "The Empire's reach is vast and no one will risk war by harboring us." "I know places," Marcus said. "Frontier worlds, independent colonies, spaces between the major powers. It won't be easy, but we can disappear if we're careful." Kara looked around their quarters, their home for the past few months. Leaving meant giving up any chance of ever returning to Zephyrian society. It meant becoming a true exile, hunted by her own people. But when she looked at Marcus, at this gentle man who had shown her what love could be, the choice was clear. "Very well," she said. "But first I want to send a message to the Empire. I want them to know exactly what I think of their lesson." As alarms began to sound in the distance, signaling the approach of Zephyrian warships, Kyra and Marcus gathered their few possessions and prepared to run. But they were no longer running as strangers forced together by circumstances. They were running as partners who had chosen each other over everything else they had ever known. Love, Kyra realized, was indeed the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Dangerous enough to destroy empires if they were lucky. The old cargo ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace near the frontier world of Haven's Rest. Kyra and Marcus had been running for 6 months now, staying one step ahead of Imperial pursuit ships. This remote planet, barely more than a mining outpost, would be their temporary refuge. "The communications array is still functional," Marcus reported from the pilot's seat. "If we're going to do this, now would be the time." Kara nodded and activated the recording equipment they had purchased on their last stop. For months she had been planning this moment, the chance to tell both species the truth about what had happened between them. "Citizens of the Zephyrian Empire and the Human Federation," she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "I am Lady Kara Velthara, daughter of Council Leader Theron. 6 months ago I was sentenced to marriage with a human as punishment for speaking against Imperial expansion policies." She paused, gathering her thoughts. Behind her, Marcus operated the transmission equipment, making sure her words would reach both their homeworlds. "The Council expected me to learn that humans were primitive and cruel. They wanted me to return with proof that other species were inferior and deserved to be conquered. Instead, I learned something else entirely." Kyra looked directly into the camera. "I learned that a human male named Marcus Chen has more honor, kindness, and wisdom than most of the nobility I grew up with. I learned that love does not recognize species boundaries, and I learned that the Empire's fear of contamination is really a fear of being proven wrong." She held up her hand, showing the simple ring Marcus had made for her from station materials. "This human asked me to be his partner in all things, not because of my noble birth or political value, but because he loves who I am. The Empire calls this contamination. I call it the beginning of something better." "To my fellow Zephyrians, especially the younger generation," Kyra continued, "I ask you to question what you have been taught about other species. The propaganda of superiority serves only those who profit from endless war. Peace offers something far more valuable, the chance to learn and grow beyond our limitations." When the recording ended, Marcus helped her upload it to every major communication network in the galaxy. Within hours, their message was spreading across both empires and beyond. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Young Zephyrians began sharing the message on underground networks. Human peace activists used it as proof that cooperation was possible. Other species took notice and began reaching out with their own stories of successful interspecies relationships. But the Imperial response was swift and harsh. Within days, pursuit ships were closing in on Haven's Rest. Kyra and Marcus barely escaped, jumping to hyperspace just as Imperial destroyers arrived in the system. Their ship was damaged in the escape, and they found themselves stranded in an asteroid field near the border between human and Zephyrian space. As Marcus worked to repair their engines, emergency communications began flooding in from unexpected sources. "Kyra, this is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the human ship Aurora," came the first message. "My crew includes 3 interspecies couples. We're en route to your position to offer assistance." Another message followed. "Lady Velthara, this is Junior Counselor Zephyra of the research vessel Harmony. Many young Zephyrians support your message. We have supplies and safe passage if you need them." More ships arrived over the following days. Traders, scientists, diplomats, and ordinary citizens from dozens of species came to offer help. What had started as 2 fugitives running for their lives had become something larger, a symbol of hope for those who dreamed of a galaxy united instead of divided. "We can't keep running forever," Marcus said one evening as they watched the growing fleet of support ships through their viewport. "Maybe it's time to make a stand," Kyra agreed. Together they proposed establishing a permanent research station in the neutral zone, a place where different species could work together freely. without the restrictions imposed by their home governments. The response was enthusiastic. Scientists, doctors, teachers, and engineers from across the galaxy volunteered to join the project. Independent merchants offered to supply them. Even some progressive members of both the Human Federation and Zephyrian Empire quietly provided support. Within a year, Unity Station was operational. Built from salvaged materials and powered by hope, it became the first truly interspecies community in known history. Kyra and Marcus served as its unofficial leaders. Though they preferred to think of themselves as simply the first residents, their research focused on the biological and cultural compatibility between different species. Their discoveries revolutionized the understanding of what was possible when beings worked together instead of against each other. Their love story became legend, but their scientific work became foundation for a new age of cooperation. 5 years after their escape from Neutral Station 7, Kyra received an unexpected visitor. An aging Zephyrian male in simple robes requested permission to come aboard. It was her father. Council leader Theron Velthera looked older than she remembered, his golden markings dimmed with age and regret. He stood in the station's central garden, surrounded by plants and trees from dozens of worlds growing together in artificial soil. "Daughter," he said quietly in their native language, "I have come to see what my punishment created." Kyra gestured around them at the bustling station where dozens of species worked, lived, and loved together in harmony. "What do you think of your handiwork, Father?" Theron was quiet for a long moment, watching a group of children from 6 different species playing together in the garden. "I intended to teach you humility and proper respect for imperial values," he said finally. "Instead, you have taught the galaxy that love is stronger than law. Are you disappointed?" Kyra asked. Her father looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in years. She was happy. She was fulfilled. She was doing work that mattered and living with someone who valued her for who she was, not what she represented. "No," Theron said softly, "I am proud, and I am sorry it took me so long to see that my daughter was wiser than her father." As the old council leader departed, carrying with him new ideas about peace and cooperation, Kyra found Marcus in their shared laboratory. He was analyzing soil samples from their latest agricultural project, working to help different species' food crops grow in the same environment. "How did it go with your father?" Marcus asked, looking up from his microscope. "Better than expected," Kyra replied, settling into the chair beside him. "I think we may have gained an unexpected ally." Marcus smiled and took her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally after years of practice. "So what started as your punishment has become his education." "The Empire wanted to teach me that humans were inferior," Kyra said, leaning over to kiss his cheek. "Instead, one human taught me that love recognizes no boundaries, that kindness is the greatest strength, and that the gentle touch of understanding can change everything." Outside their laboratory window, Unity Station continued its work of bringing different worlds together, and at its heart, a Zephyrian lady and a human scientist continued to prove that some punishments become the greatest gifts of all.